Hey guys, Tom Shue here, also known as AK Freak on the forums and some IRC chat channels. I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of information on these BEARHUG ESCs from ReadyTo Fly Quads. There's quite a bit of information out there, but it's kind of all mixed up, nothing's compiled together, and it can be kind of confusing on what you're supposed to do to get these things flashed. First of all, these little ESCs, they're tiny, okay? You can see that a segment of my index finger is larger than these ESCs. So soldering can be a challenge, and definitely trying to explain to you what they are can be a challenge. So I've got set up a field monitor and a DSLR camera working like a microscope. Alright, got a little macro lens on there so I can zoom in and show you what's going on. Let's zoom in here and let's look at these pads. Alright, now that's 10 times, and matter of fact the field monitor allowed me to zoom in more, but that's close enough. On the back side of the ESC, you can see that there'll be a group of pads. There's 2 pads off to one side, 3, and then a dot. Now this dot is a 12 volt. These 3 pads are your programming pads, and these 2 are the connection for signal. This one is ground and this one's pulse width modulation. This particular pad is also a ground, right? But this is a ground for the programming leads, all right? And these 2 pads are going to be the this one here is called a C2CK as in Charlie, 2 Charlie Kilo, and this pad over here is a C2D as in Delta, so that's a Charlie 2 Delta. And you can get 12 volts from this pad. You could use it for whatever you want, but there's better ways to get voltage than that little baby pad there. So what you're going to do is, since these are ESCs are Scilab chips on them, and they don't use any other protocol. Scilab uses its own protocol. There's only a couple ways you can program them. You can use a Scilab stick and program them, and we're going to be using software called Blheli Suite to push up the firmware that we're going to be using. Or you can use an Arduino board. Now there's a tutorial online that shows you step by step what you need to hook up on the Arduino lines to match these respective lines to push data up to flash these ESCs. They come pre-flashed with Blheli Suite. However, I want to make sure I have the current version, and I want to change some settings on there. And I might go over that later on, but this tutorial is just to help you get set up and answer a few questions on these particular ESCs. Now, when you're soldering the power leads on them, they can be kind of tough. Let me see if I can show you what those look like. Now this one's been soldered, and you can see on the other side there's going to be 4 little brown capacitors. Okay, now don't worry if you bridge your solder gaps between here and here. That's okay, because each one of these 2 on each side is a pair. They're in parallel, those capacitors, and your solder can flow across because the pad is very tiny. It looks big on this monitor, but believe me, it's a pretty tiny pad. You also want to be careful that when you solder them, you're going to get that capacitor hot, and it can slide forward, and actually you can slide it off the pads altogether. So be careful when you're doing that and kind of push downward force. And what I recommend doing is tinning the board itself back here, and tin your wire good, and then use some flux. I use Chip Quick Flux, the no clean, and lay that in there, and then get everything hot, and it will flow together. And then do that to the other side as well. Let me see if I can show you the other side. There we go. And then this is what a decent solder joint would look like, and you can see that they're shiny, so we don't have a cold solder joint. You want to look for shiny joints. And let me see if I can turn on edge, and you can look at it down on the board. You can see that it's actually on the pad on the board as well as to the top of the capacitor. Again, don't worry about it if you get those bridged, these 2 caps, because they are in parallel. I had to ask some of these questions, and these are the answers I've been given, so trust what I'm saying because I asked the right people. Alright, so that's it. What we'll do is we'll get our tiny wires soldered up on those pads down here, and we'll get our programming leads on, and we'll move forward with this project. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and check for our next video after we get everything set up and ready for programming. Thanks for watching.